And we are back here on Metal Nation Radio. You just heard Elijah, the new track off A Sound of Thunder's brilliant new album, The Lesser Key of Solomon. With us tonight, Josh Schwartz. How you doing, brother?
I am fantastic. Hello, everybody. Hello, Rustin.
It is phenomenal to have you. We were hoping, obviously, Nina was going to be able to join us, but she just got off a big run doing Sweeney Todd. I'm sure she's probably pretty worn out.
She is superhuman. She did 16 shows of Sweeney Todd. She plays the female lead, Mrs. Lovett, and that was all throughout August. And at the same time, we were bringing her in on all her off days to finish vocals for another project we're working on. So she was literally singing every day in August, and she nailed it. So I'm very proud of her.
So it's fitting that here on Labor Day, she's taking the day off work.
She has definitely earned a day off.
And happy birthday to you. Last Thursday, I believe it was your birthday.
Yes, it was. Thank you very much.
So, well, let's talk about the new album then, The Lesser Key of Solomon. Just keeps unveiling new shades of the band, and so far the critics have been quite effusive in their praise.
We were a little nervous because we definitely stretched out a little bit on this album, experimented, tried some things that were a little outside of our comfort zone. And if you just played Elijah for everybody, that was the one that we were most worried about. Obviously, 9.5 minutes, a lot of changes, more harmony vocals than we've ever put on a track before. And, we're very, very pleased that everybody seems to like it.
Yeah, that's one of those songs where you actually get to yank out that term epic that everybody overuses.
Yeah, I think we may have earned it on that one.
So, now, when I did my review of the album, I referred to you guys as post-apologetic metal, which was my tongue-in-cheek jab at those critics who continually seem to be intellectually stymied because they cannot pigeonhole you guys. They just can't get past the need to label.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big deal. It's been a big hurdle for us, but, none of us within the band are really, listening to one specific subgenre of metal, nor do we really care about specific subgenres. So while we may I like some power metal bands and some doom metal bands, to me, it's all just metal and hard rock. And furthermore, my favorite bands are bands that predate the subgenres anyway. I'm the kind of dude that would love to go back in time and be able to see Black Sabbath and Yes on the same concert.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny, and you and I probably talked about this before online, but, most of the bands that we grew up with as metal are barely more than rock bands anymore by the standard that we've set today, so...
Yeah, that blows my mind that a lot of kids now, don't consider Black Sabbath to be a metal band. To me, they're the metal band.
Yeah, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, nowadays they're almost just rock, but... Anyway, the fans once again rose to the occasion with another stunningly successful Kickstarter campaign for the new record. That has to feel incredible to have such support.
It really does, and I mean, now this is going on a year old at this point because it took us so long to finish the album and get it out, but to go back in time to last fall, we were truly shocked. I mean, we did an $8,000 Kickstarter for Times Arrow, which... that alone shocked and humbled us. So to be able to triple that was just amazing. None of us saw it coming, and all we can say is thank you. And we hope we delivered something that was worth the support. And it seems like people think we did so far.
As usually happens with A Sound of Thunder, you were writing and even working on the recording before last year's tremendous Times Arrow album hit the streets.
Yeah, I mean, part of it is because we haven't been on any big long tours, or maybe we're not touring as much as some other bands, so we have the time. But the other part of it is that, the four of us we're really close friends. We get together twice a week, every week, and we've been in the habit for the entire existence of this band of just jamming every time we get together. And, more often than not, every time we jam it creates at least part of a song, and so far we haven't run out of the desire to stretch out and come up with new stuff. So we're now at this point, we're actually even more ahead than we've ever been because we're literally about one studio day away from finishing the next studio album.
I heard, and I'm gonna bug you about that later on, but right now, before I want to talk about the music, obviously, but before we get to the music, Tell us a little bit about the packaging and art for this album. Obviously, you did a lot of stuff with this one. You once again turned to your favorite artist, right?
Yes, Dusan Markovic, who is just a fantastic painter. There's a traditional metal festival in Chicago called Ragnarocker, which is a fantastic event. They've been putting it on for 4 or 5 years, and we played it a few years ago, and they had this killer poster, and Nina loved it. I loved it too. She tracked down the artist on this thing, and it was Dusan Markovic, a painter who happens to live in Serbia. And she got in touch with him over the internet, and the first thing that he did for us was the cover of Queen of Hell. And when that came out, it was instantly our most popular piece of art we'd ever done. People loved it. People wanted it on a shirt. And so we said, well, we're on to something with this guy. And, just from that point on, he became our artist of record. And with this most recent album, The Lesser Key of Solomon, we wanted to kind of expand the visual experience of the album. So he took tremendous time and effort, but he's done a full-size painting for every single song on the album, plus one extra. So there's actually 11 paintings for the 10 songs.
Wow, amazing. So, and I'm assuming in the whole layout and everything of the physical version and whatnot, fans are going to get a chance to see all of that stuff, or is there a booklet, or what's...
In the CD, people will get 6 of them. We have all the lyrics. Part of the deal with the Kickstarter was, adding the booklet to the CD package actually adds a tremendous cost to the manufacturing. It almost doubles the cost. So we did a 16-page booklet, and we crammed all the lyrics in there and as much of the art as we could. But the ultimate experience and the way we'd like people to experience the album is with this deluxe vinyl book that we're putting out. It's 12 inches by 12 inches, and it's a hardcover book that comes in a slipcase. There's the album inside on double vinyl, green vinyl, and then 12 by 12 pages inside, and you get the lyrics on one page in large format, and on the opposite page is the painting for each song. So, what we'd love is to see, people sitting in their rooms like we all did when we were teenagers and listening to the album and looking at the book, reading the lyrics, absorbing the art, and just getting into the whole experience and vibe of it.
Right. I was going to say, you guys are sort of making records and putting it all together the way you and I grew up with it, that way that we love doing it, and very organic, and I really miss that.
Well, I think it's, with the digital age, it's so easy to forget that, but really, because it's so easy for people to steal the music itself almost becomes valueless to some people. But we wanted to give some people something physical that they could hold in their hands. That's not just a plastic jewel case and a little flimsy booklet. It's something impressive, and hopefully to help people connect with the album a little bit more.
Now, from your perspective, how does The Lesser Key of Solomon contrast to the previous efforts? Because it's decidedly unique, but it still retains the band's signature sound. Like you said, you sort of ventured out a little bit.
Well, it's the first time we've ever attempted to put together material that had something in common. So we didn't necessarily sit down and try to write all dark and moody songs, but what we had when it came time to record the album was maybe 15 songs that were near completion, and we took the 10 that we seemed like they fit together the best. So that was just the general mood and the feel of it. It was a little bit darker, a little bit more atmospheric, but at the same time, at that point in the band and our writing, we were just coming off of Time's Arrow. Time's Arrow wasn't even released yet when we were writing most of this stuff. But most of the material on Time's Arrow is a little more direct and less proggy, less complicated, and so we were wanting to stretch out a bit, and also mindful of the fact that the 2 albums are coming out barely a year apart.
Right.
It was too soon to repeat ourselves. We didn't want to put out something that sounded just like Time's Arrow, because on any other band schedule, Time's Arrow is still the new album.
Yeah, really. I was going to say the last time we sat down and talked was in 2012, and since then, this is basically the 3rd album plus an EP, and you already have another one almost in the bag, and there's a covers EP coming, which we'll talk about in a bit. But so you guys have been pretty prolific by today's standards, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, our primary reason for existing is to make music. There's no reason to limit ourselves to a 2 or 3 year album cycle. It's not, it is a business, but it's not. The business end of it for us is It all comes in after we write the music, and it's just the point of the business is to get our music to as many people as possible, and then hopefully recoup as much money as we can to put into the next album. But the goal is not to make a profit and live off of it, really.
And no guest vocalist this time around.
No, we we kind of made a decision after Time's Arrow that we wouldn't do a guest vocalist again purely just to have one. We'll do it again when we have the right song. So My Disease was a perfect song. That was conceived as a duet, and Blaze Bayley was the perfect voice for it. On the other hand, Out of the Darkness, from the album of the same name, which has John Gallagher for Raven, while I love that track, I love John's performance on it, that song was not conceived as a duet. And, it was something we wanted to do because we knew nobody had heard of us, and we figured a lot of people probably wouldn't care or wouldn't bother to listen. And, that's why bands do these guest spots, is to say, hey, take us seriously, and here's somebody you have heard of playing with us. But we don't feel the need to do that just for the sake of having a guest singer. Now we'll do it when it's the right thing to do for the song.
All right, so I want to talk about some of the songs on the album, and to sort of kickstart that before we get into it, why don't we play, we'll call it the premiere of Udaroth here on Metal Nation Radio. I know you guys are going to be releasing it tomorrow in a lyric video, right?
No, tomorrow we're releasing something that will hopefully blow everyone's minds. We did a fully animated video for Udaroth.
Oh, wow.
And it looks fantastic, so look for it tomorrow.
Sweet. We're going to take a jump out of here and play that, and we will be back with more from Josh from A Sound of Thunder here on Metal Nation Radio. And we are back. You just heard Udaroth, the debut, here on Metal Nation Radio. Thanks for letting us debut it here, Josh.
No problem.
Now, you were just saying you guys are going to be releasing this full-scale animated video tomorrow. Tell us how that all came together, and tell us a little bit about the song itself. It's like, what is Udaroth?
Well, it goes back to the song Queen of Hell, which was based on a story that Nina had for the main character, the Queen of Hell. And, I encouraged her to write a song about it because I thought the title was fantastic. She actually had a song called Queen of Hell, which was a completely different song with the band that she was in before. And she mentioned it to me, and I just said, that title's too good to not use. We have to do one called Queen of Hell. So we worked up that song, which was on Time's Arrow, of course. And Nina and I, both being huge comic book fans, we kind of developed this story. She had the idea for the Queen of Hell, who has a whole origin story. And we started expanding that for this possible comic book. And I came up with the villain, who's Udaroth, who was kind of, I guess I can say without getting sued, we named him after Udo from Accept. And, he's the demon lord and the Queen of Hell's nemesis. And there's a whole story. Now, the animated video is 3.5 minutes, but it crams quite a bit of the expanded story in there, and it's a story that we may revisit with future songs. And if the animated video does well, we may do a Kickstarter at some point to do an expanded animated feature with actual dialogue from the characters. So we have big plans for the Queen of Hell and Udaroth.
Nice. So that means, going back to what we were talking about before the jump, we could actually see Udo on an album with A Sound of Thunder with Nina. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, we would have to ask him to do the voice of Udaroth if we dialogued him. For sure.
Absolutely. So I know we don't have time to go through every track on the album, but the album art and title suggest that this is a concept record. I know it's not, but you said there was sort of a theme. But there are a couple tracks that do tie together, and I believe that's The Boy Who Could Fly and, of course, Elijah, which we heard to open the interview.
Yes.
Tell us about that little story there. That's another one of Nina's, right?
Actually, Elijah was my story.
Oh, okay.
Queen of Hell is kind of her baby, and Elijah was mine. But, we have a writing partnership, so when I have an idea, she kind of helps me edit it, and when she has an idea, I help her edit it. So Elijah, I guess I should give a big spoiler warning. If you like to interpret songs your own way and you don't want to really know what it's about, this is, time to plug your ears. But Elijah and The Boy Who Could Fly are about a little girl. Nina's singing in first person as this little girl, and she lives alone in this big house with her mother. What she doesn't remember is that she was actually kidnapped as a little girl, and her mother is not really her mother. And she had regular parents, and she had a little brother named Elijah. And this woman, when she kidnapped her, killed the parents and killed the little brother. So the girl's grown up alone in this house, and what you hear at the beginning of Elijah is the little brother is reappearing as a ghost, trying to warn her and jog her memory and get her to remember that, hey, this isn't really your mother, you're in danger here. And the ghosts of the girls that appear at the end of Elijah are kind of the tip of the hat that this crazy woman that kidnapped this girl has done it before. And in our expanded story, the woman had a real daughter, a biological daughter that died. And she went nuts and she started kidnapping little girls, bringing them to her house, changing their name, pretending that they were her real daughter. But every time they reach about 12 or 13 years old, she kills them, and then she goes out and she kidnaps another girl.
Wow. Sounds like a warped version of a Criminal Minds episode.
It's, well, we kind of envisioned it as a Guillermo del Toro type movie.
Yeah, there you go. So,
yeah.
Well, I have to ask you, too, about two of my favorite songs on the album. Mm-hmm. First one is Blood of the Mummy's Tomb. Tell us a little bit about that one, because you had a lot of great stuff going on in that song that I just absolutely love.
Thank you. Well, Blood of the Mummy's Tomb came around when we were toying with the idea of putting out a Halloween single. And the one side of it was going to be One Empty Grave, which has a little spoken word section. And that whole song came from a conversation we had on break in practice one day. Well, really, it was between Nina and Chris talking about how they love Devil Went Down to Georgia by Charlie Daniels Band. And so they said, well, we got to have something with like a spoken word breakdown like that. And One Empty Grave came from that, and that was natural. We were like, we've got to put this out on like glow-in-the-dark vinyl. It's going to be a Halloween single. And then, of course, always having too many songs, we're like, well, we better do a B-side. And I don't know where it came from there other than it was Halloween. We're like, Halloween, mummies, okay. We found this old Hammer horror movie called Blood from the Mummy's Tomb on Netflix, and Nina and I watched it, and we started writing kind of creepy atmospheric riffs, maybe a little hint of that Egyptian power slave kind of style. Mm-hmm. And that was where the main idea came from. And as far as all the changes and the nuances and the technicality in it, some of these songs, they just lend themselves to tacking on more and more parts in the writing process. Mummy's Tomb was one that I wrote a lot of, especially the middle on my computer, making a demo. It was just one, we just kept adding parts and they kept feeling right, and it got more complicated and longer, but it seemed like it worked out in the end.
Yeah, it turned out brilliantly. And of course, it may be my favorite song on the album at the moment. It sort of keeps changing the more and more I listen to it, but the final track, House of Bones, your lone special guest appearance on this album. Tell us about that one, because it's definitely uniquely different from what you guys have done in the past.
Well, that one I have to credit Jesse for. The opening riff that you hear when the band comes in, the jazzy part where the bass and the drums first come in,
right?
That riff was the basis for the whole song. It's in the time signature is like 11/4, and Jesse had that riff for years. He did a demo with it back like 5 or 10 years ago before he was in the band, and he'd always wanted to use it. So he brought that to the band. So the piano guest that you hear at the top of the song it's the same riff. We just changed it from an 11 to a 7, and we had this jazzy piano master, Lawson Harris, come in and play that part. Then you get into the 11 section. That's Jesse's riff as he wrote it. The middle of the song I wrote the music for, the heavy riffy part. And then at the very end of the song, then you get Jesse's riff back again as a fast 4/4 section. So that one was just a blast to write. And for me, writing most of the band's music, but not all, it was really cool to have him bring in a great riff, and it's cool to have something inspiring to start from. So he was the starting point for that song. It wouldn't exist without him.
Yeah, and it came together so well, and it ends the album so well. Now, as part of the Kickstarter campaign, because it was doing so well, you guys were letting some fans, they could actually, as part of it, get you to record a cover song just for them. And
yes,
that sort of took on a life of its own, and now you guys are doing like a full covers thing with those songs, and plus you guys each picked some that you had the fans vote on. What's the status of that? How has that turned out? What can you tell us?
Well, we had at least five songs paid for by the fans that we're going to do, and without blowing all of them, I thought one of them is Deep Purple Space Truckin', which I can't wait to record.
Nice.
Somebody heard Nina singing Trash and said, that girl can do Ian Gillan, so we're doing another one. And a Dan Fogelberg song called Ghosts, which is really out of left field for a metal band, but we have a great fan that thought it would make a great metal song. So we're going to do that one. And as far as the voted ones, kind of a closet classic Alice Cooper song, Who Do You Think We Are?
Right.
And we're going to do, looks like we're going to do Gypsy by Merciful Fate. So those are just a few of them. We actually haven't started on that yet, though. We'll be doing that, starting on it at the end of the year. And the people that paid for specific songs, they'll get them first, and they'll be, theirs to enjoy privately for a while.
Right. And
then we'll do the voted ones. Everybody on the Kickstarter gets our cover of Pleasure Slave by Manowar, which should be ridiculous. So that's going to be an ongoing project. We signed ourselves up for a lot more work than we realized. So, that'll be something we'll start working on at the end of 2014, and, hopefully we'll have finished by the end of 2015.
Nice. And probably either before or right around the same time we'll have another album from you.
Well, that's the other thing. The one that we're finishing now is going to be out probably like first quarter of 2015. So it'll be a real short wait. It's going to be done. We were originally thinking about putting it out at Halloween, but that was craziness and way too close to Lesser Key, so we just pushed it back a bit.
With Lesser Key coming out here on September 9th, next Tuesday, and you guys already being so far into this, you've sort of teased us a little bit. I don't want to steal the thunder from Lesser Key, but what can you tell us about this new one in terms of maybe direction relative to the other stuff? Or
I would say it's definitely a forward progression. We took everything that we learned on Lesser Key, stretching out with some of the proggier direction and more atmospheric direction. We've taken that, but we've condensed it back. There's not as many long songs. There's a couple of 7 minutes and an 8 minute, but there's no 9 minute tracks, and there's a couple of shorter ones again. But I would say it's dark and atmospheric, but it's not quite as laid back as Lesser Key. It's more intense. And this one is going to actually be a true concept album. It's going to run together with no gaps, and there's a very definite story that hopefully you'll get clearly from beginning to end on the album.
Fantastic. So before we get out of here, on next week's show, I have the great honor of talking with the mighty Glenn Tipton of Judas Priest, and I know you're a huge fan, both as a musician and just a fan of the music. We were talking covers a moment ago, and it made me wonder if you were to choose a Priest cover for the band, because I know you'd probably pick something obscure. What
I would. Right off the bat, I was like, we would probably do Run of the Mill. Yeah, it's on Rock-a-Rolla.
Right. Oh, wow. Yeah, I was going to say, I spent this week going back and listening to every album, every track, getting ready for next week. But I did not listen to Rock-a-Rolla because even the band has sort of written that album off.
Well, I noticed they did Never Satisfied on the last couple of tours.
Right.
And, I like some stuff on there, but man, go back and listen to Run of the Mill, because Halford's vocals on that are amazing and beautiful. Now, Nina would fight me on that, though. Nina would say we have to do Jugulator.
I told you, it's got to be something obscure, right? All right, so last question, just for fun. Give us 3 albums that changed your life.
Well, the number one album for sure was Ozzy Osbourne's Speak of the Devil, because that was my first one. I was like 12, and I thought Iron Man was about the Marvel Comics character, so that was the only reason I showed any interest. And, right away, though, the music grabbed me. And, of course, now I never listen to that album because the Sabbath versions are so much better. Second would probably be Iron Maiden, Live After Death. That was the first big Maiden album for me. And I would say, maybe Judas Priest, Sad Wings of Destiny, because I used to sing that album from beginning to end. It really got me into music on a deeper level. And I think I developed a deeper appreciation of the guitar and the vocals and just the overall songwriting from that record.
Funny you should mention Speak of the Devil, because literally I just interviewed Brad Gillis yesterday. So,
it's one of those, like, it was a fantastic album. I like the mix on it. Brad Gillis's playing is amazing. But then once I went back and became a Sabbath fan, Iommi's style is the style for those songs, and Brad Gillis's style seems so wrong to me for those songs in retrospect.
Thank you, Josh, so much for taking the time. We look forward to everybody getting their ears on the Lesser Key of Solomon because it's such a fantastic album, and we definitely are going to look forward to this cover CD. I love that. Most people probably never heard of it, but that Fogelberg song you mentioned is one of my favorites from him.
It's a beautiful song. Yeah, I can't wait to do it.
So, and I know you guys will knock it out of the park. But again, thanks so much for taking the time. I will let you get out of here and get on with your evening. Happy Labor Day to you. And
Thank you for having me, Rustin. Thanks to everybody listening.